This podcast is presented by the Everyday People and powered by the Book Boulevard. It is also made possible through the crowdfunding support of our patrons. Now you too can be a monthly subscriber by visiting this website.
Writing a play and finishing a play is a tiny death, right? You always, because it takes so much out of you. I don't know why we do it, but I mean, in the moment, I guess we find some joy in crafting a really authentic human story, but it's painful. Okay. Okay.
Mr. Lucas Ho,
What's up?
thank
How
you
are
so much. I'm good. How are you?
Thank you, I'm good also. Thank you for having me, Arman.
No, thank you for your willingness to come on board for my very first podcast episode. So this is not our first rodeo. I've actually interviewed you back in 2017,
Yes.
if you remember.
I do remember very well,
And
yes.
That was for your debut play, FRAGO, right?
Yes, FRAGO in 2017.
FRAGO. And I don't even remember the specifics of what we were talking about, but I remember having such a soulful and amazing conversation with you.
Yes.
So I was thinking, right, if I ever had a podcast and I needed to have my very first guest, I was thinking like, why not Mr. Lucas Ho? Man?
Oh, well, no pressure. But no. Thank you. I'm glad we reconnected. Yes, that was a very lovely time I spent with you. We had a conversation and then you took some pictures of me and then you came to my house.
Yes, I remember.
Took more pictures. So that was very lovely. So yeah, I'm glad we can do this again.
Yeah, and it was just quite apt because that was your debut play. So you were trying to make your mark as, in Singapore theatre.
Yeah.
And I was still starting out with the Everyday People.
Yes.
I was trying to make my mark with Singapore, with like local publishing. So I thought it was quite nice for two people who were trying to make their mark in their respective fields, like come together and have a conversation.
Yes.
So I thought it was very nice.
It is lovely. And we're still here.
We're still here. We made it. Like 7 years later, we're still doing the same
Gosh,
thing.
it has been 6 years.
Yeah, 6 years.
Six lah, huh?
2017. Yeah, 6 years. 6 years. But that is a lot of time.
It's
that
still
has
a long time,
passed.
yes.
Yeah. So for the benefit of people who may not be familiar with what you do and your body of work, why don't you tell us a bit more about Lucas Ho?
Oh my gosh, my body of work. So I write, I'm mainly a playwright. I work mostly in theatre. I work as a playwright. I do some directing, I do some facilitation, I do some dramaturgy. But yeah, I'm mostly a playwright. And I'm an associate artist with Checkpoint Theatre. So that's been my artistic home since 2013, really, 2012, 2013.
A decade, my friend.
A decade. I've known Huzier and Claire for a long time. Huzier, Sulaiman and Claire Wong, who are the joint artistic directors of Checkpoint Theatre. I'm very blessed to have known them for so long and how they've just taken me and other associates under their wing, and I've learned a lot about theatre through them. So yeah, my debut play was in FRAGO, which was about army reservists.
Yes, I remember because I reviewed your play and I completely enjoyed what I watched, because as a Singaporean man who also underwent national service for 2 years, I completely understood what the characters went through.
Yeah.
I resonated with the experiences, and I think that also is a testament to the kind of work that Checkpoint Theatre produces. It has to be relatable. It has to be a Singapore story. Why don't you tell me more about like what kept you at Checkpoint Theatre or stick with them all these years?
Well, I mean, I guess nobody else wanted me.
Don't say that.
No, I think for Claire and Huzier, they know that to nurture an artist, to really have a mentoring relationship, it's a long game. You can't just put a deadline or put milestones on it artificially, right? It's an organic process and it takes a long time. So they've been very happy to just let people hang around. They just say, hey, come and watch a rehearsal, come for a table read and give comments. So they're really open. They hold space for everybody, and I and other people have been a beneficiary of that. So it's a very empathetic approach towards art making and mentorship. And so I hang around for a long time, right? So I've known Huzier since 2007 actually, because I took his playwriting class
At NUS?
at NUS. I was his first batch, I was in his first batch of playwriting.
Oh, you were? You
Yeah.
were the pioneer batch.
I was the pioneer batch, and so
Man.
I knew him since then. I've stuck around. So since since 2007, you know, Huzia has always just said, hey, you know, you wanna, you know, they've been very open. So they would even open their house and say, let's just have a marathon read of all our plays that came from their class. You know, so yeah, very open, very generous. You know, they would feed us young, starving students. You know, and then we would watch a lot of theatre together, and they would invite us to their own, as they made theatre, they would invite us into their rehearsal rooms as well.
Wow.
So, yeah, I've been a huge beneficiary of that, and of course, as a young artist who at that point of time, I didn't even know if I wanted to do theatre full time, right? I didn't even know if I wanted to pursue that as a career. It was just it just opened my eyes to so many things. So yeah, I've been a beneficiary of that, and that's why I hung around, because it was so cool to see how professional theatre people made work. You know, and it was so cool to just hang around all these actors. You know, I was very starstruck in the early days. But yeah, I've hung around. You know, so yeah, it took me a long time to finally write a play, because I've known Huzia since 2007, and then finally my play debuted in 2017. So almost 10 years.
10 years.
Right, and I think that's been my journey. You know, I think Huzia's had other students who are now, I mean, I'm very grateful to call not just colleagues but friends. So like Faith Ng, Joel Tan, Shiv Tandon, Laramie Lee, all these former students who actually wrote very wonderful plays in Huzia's playwriting class at NUS that were then taken up by professional theatre companies. Right, so Checkpoint Stage, Faith's play, you know, Warai's stage, Joel's play, and Laramie's play. So they've gone on to all that success at a very early stage. I never had that. I think because, you know,
It's your personal journey.
it's my personal journey, and nobody says there's one way to be successful as a playwright. So, you know, I took my time. You know, I guess, of course, in the early days, I was anxious, like, you know, how come I'm hanging around but I'm not productive? You know, and I get all those questions. Am I a playwright? But I enjoy it. I enjoy working theatre. I think I'm getting quite good at this. You know, I write short little plays that people liked, and I was part of a community. And I guess, looking back on those years associating with Checkpoint Theatre, and of course, watching a lot of theatre and getting to know the larger theatre community, I realized that before I became, I belonged. You know, and very often we put, there's always a premium placed on, like, oh, now you've become an artist, now you become a writer.
And then you belong.
And then you belong, right? You become a photographer, you become a filmmaker, then you belong to the group of artists. But actually, my own journey was that I was hanging out at Checkpoint, obviously, but also I was getting to know other theatre makers. And I would watch a lot of theatre, and I would talk a lot about theatre with Faith. I remember with Faith, with Joel, we would go and watch a show, and then we would have long, like, supper discussions about what we liked and about the show and what we didn't understand about the show. And that was my theatre education, right? That was my drama school, right? But I wouldn't have had that if I didn't have people who just accepted me first, who didn't care, like, oh, it doesn't matter that you're not a produced playwright, it doesn't matter that you haven't done a professional show, you know, just come and hang out, and we enjoy talking to you, and we enjoy watching shows with you. So that, I think that you know, looking back now, that is a philosophy that I want to take forward also. You know, I don't want to judge people based on what they have produced, but who they are as a human being. And okay, I can sense that you have
The potential.
you have the potential, you have a point of view, you have a sensibility that can be developed, because people took that chance on me. Yeah, so
Yeah.
before I became, I belonged.
I think that's beautiful that they gave you a seat at the table,
Yeah.
and even prior to you creating a body of work that was originally your own. I think that's a beautiful approach to mentoring and nurturing the future generation of talents.
And it requires a long-term commitment. You know, you can't put a price on it. You can't have a budget sheet for say, okay, I'm going to mentor this person. This is the resources that you can't do that.
Yeah.
You know, you really have to take a long bet, and you wait long.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think I'm very grateful that Claire and Huzia did for me.
And look where we are today. This flower has bloomed.
Yes, I hope so. Yeah.
And so, my friend, you are back with a brand new play,
Yes.
Tender Submission. right? That will be running from the 17th to 27th August at the Drama Centre Black Box, and that's at the National Library, for those who are not familiar with the venue. I'll be there to watch it on opening night.
Oh, wow.
And hopefully write a raving review, so I'm excited about it. No pressure.
No pressure.
No pressure. But can you share what Tender Submission is about?
Okay, so Tender Submission is a play about a married couple, and they're both in their late 50s, mid to late 50s, and they both are church-going people, so they're religious. And what has happened is that the wife, Catherine, she has set in motion, I don't want to spoil too much, right? She's set in motion a series of events that requires the church to vote on it.
Wow.
And it's actually become quite controversial within that church community. So as the vote is underway, she sneaks away to hide in a cry room, and I'll explain what a cry room is in a bit. So she snuck away to hide in a cry room, and her husband David has come to look for her. And as they talk through, the ramifications of this vote for the church, they find their marriage falling apart, or they find that
in that cry room,
they find their assumptions about themselves and each other. They find themselves questioning assumptions about themselves and each other. So that's the play. And a cry room is basically in a church. It's a room that's sort of off to the side, either at the back of the worship hall or the sanctuary, where parents can take their children to calm them down, to feed them, to soothe them, so that they don't disrupt the worship service. Yeah.
Understand.
So that's a cry room, just for people who don't know. But yeah, that's the premise of my play, in a nutshell.
Interesting. So what inspired you to write Tender Submission?
Well, that's a good question. I think many things actually inspired me. I think the first thing was that I started writing the play at the end of 2020.
The COVID period?
Yeah, so at the end of 2020, beginning of 2021. And I think I was, so in early 2020, I had a play that was supposed to go up at the Esplanade that was, the live staging got cancelled.
I'm so sorry, Lucas.
No, well, thank you for being sorry. And we've all had to go through that process. I think many live shows, theatre, music, and visual arts all had to, that period was, of course, quite defining for some of us.
That's
but
a
yeah,
way to put it.
Yeah, I think, so, yeah, that's one way to put it. So The Heart Comes to Mind was supposed to be staged at the Esplanade as part of the studio's season in 2020, and the live staging, so we had to pivot twice, because they were rehearsing in January and February. I'm like, oh, something's happening in 2020. And then they said, okay, let's pivot to make it a filmed experience, because we probably can't get a live theatre audience in. And then as we were preparing to film it, circuit breaker hit. So very quickly we had to pivot again, and we just said, look, let's just capture an audio recording of it, because we weren't ready to film yet. So I'm very grateful still that the audio recording was still released by the Esplanade in May 2020. So I'm quite grateful, in June 2020. So I'm quite grateful that actually it still went out into the world. But of course a bit sayang, because I wrote it to be a live stage play.
Of course.
So yeah, that whole period, I think, having had a play cancelled and having had to stay at home and not be in contact with loved ones, friends, family, and communities that I was, that sustained me, it really prompted a deep soul searching. It's like, okay, theatre is so fragile, at the snap of a finger, at a drop of a hat, things that cancel like that. Should I pursue another art form that is more resilient, or do I reimagine my own theatre practice, my own writing practice?
You were soul searching.
It was soul searching. I mean, it was productive. I think I was, of course, it was a crisis, I think, for many of us, but also it wasn't all doom and gloom. I think we were just trying to find out, what is the future? If and when this, well, not if, but when this is over, what will theatre look like? What will playwriting look like? Because we're doing so many things on Zoom, right? And we were trying to okay, is this a platform worth exploring in the long term?
Yeah.
So those were questions that I was asking myself. And at the same time, like I said, not making contact with friends and family. So that also sort of asked myself, I had to ask myself, what are relationships? You know, what are the basis for keeping in contact with people? You know,
Is it defined by proximity or whatever it may be?
just familiarity, like, oh, we've been doing this for so long, therefore we meet up, and then now we are forced not to meet. Is there a reason to continue? So I think all those things, I think,
Interesting questions.
I mean, very, like, they're artistic, but they're also existential, right? But also, I think we all went through those questions. We all went through that period of questioning. But I think out of that also, then I didn't write anything actually. I know some people were incredibly productive during circuit breaker, right?
I wasn't.
That makes two of us, right? But yeah, there were some people who were incredibly productive, and that's great. They were writing novels and writing plays and figuring out how to make art on Zoom or with other platforms. And I wasn't doing a lot of that. So at the end of 2020, you know, Checkpoint, Jose and Claire were very gung-ho. I don't know, let's keep making art. So they asked the associate artists, they asked us, and by the way, I realize I haven't explained this, like, Checkpoint Theatre has an associate artist program where Claire and Huzia, like what we just explained, people who they think they like, they enjoy the company of, but also they see potential in, they invite to be associate artists, and there's no pressure to produce. It's sort of a long-standing, loose association. So I'm a beneficiary of that. So they asked the associate artists, hey, look, are you guys, do you want to do anything? Do you have any projects in mind, any plays or scripts that you want to develop? Let us know, we'll try and support you anyway. So I was like, look, we've been through quite a trying year, but I want to try writing again. You know, and like I said, because I started re-examining what is playwriting.
Yeah.
You know, if so much of the work is going on Zoom, does it shift our craft, or are there some, like, you know, inalienable principles that do not change even though the medium and the platform have shifted? So I decided, okay, I want to try writing something, and you know, I want to let's go back to what I think are the basics, which are of playwriting, which are just dialogue and character development. Let's see how far I can go. So I just decided, look, what if I go back and write something that harkens back to what Aristotle calls the unities of drama, right? So it's space, time, and character. Like, he said, a good play, I might be mangling this, but I'm not a student.
It's okay, it's okay.
What if I write, you know, so for him, a good play is like, it happens in one place, and it happens in real time, and the action is resolved within that period of time. You know, you don't jump location, you don't, you know. So I was like, wow, let's try that. And I gave myself another restraint, which was like, let's just do it with two characters. Let's resist the urge to introduce a new character or to, you know, remove somebody. No monologues, no cuts. Let's just stick to that. Real time, two people in a room trying to figure something out.
Makes it more intense.
It makes it super intense. But also then I realized I had to dig deep. Because you know, I can't do any tricks. Oh, here's a monologue. Okay, let me end the scene. Let me do a flashback. I couldn't. I had to really stay in the moment. So I really drew down, and that was an interesting writing exercise for me. It was very painful, but I did that, right. So that was the form. I landed on the form. Why do I want to write a play that's set in a religious institution, right? So I think, you know, as a playwright, so I did FRAGO, right, which was very observational. Just like, oh, this is like the army experience unvarnished. Here you go.
Something that you went through also.
That I went through also, and very true to life, right? I you know, almost documentary, right? Like, I enjoy doing that. And then my second play was The Heart Comes to Mind, which was just about a father-daughter relationship. So I realized that for where I had landed as a playwright, or where I had grown as a storyteller, is that I don't really like writing to a theme. I'm not motivated by having like a message to share, right? I just want to look at I just want to look at individual human characters and how human beings interact with each other, right? I don't want to like necessarily have a thing to say.
Yeah, because not all life experiences have a lesson or a, you know, conclusion.
Exactly.
It's just life.
It's just life, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like anti-storytelling, right? Anti-narrative. Yeah. But I enjoy that, right? And then those were my earlier two plays, and then now I realized, look, if I want to have this locked room experience, two characters, one place, no cuts, I had to have a solid plot. I had to have solid enough to. So
like
that's
a
where
narrative arc.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's what I drew down to, and then also harkening back to like my two plays, ostensibly had nothing to say, no message, no theme. I said, maybe I do want to say something. Maybe I just want to like, have an opinion, for once. So I was reflecting a lot, and I realized that, like I said, during COVID, we couldn't meet with the communities that sustain and nourish us. And I'm a Christian. I've born and raised a Christian, and because of COVID, we couldn't go to church. We had to live stream all the services, right? And then so the same thing, I started reflecting like, what made me a Christian? Why am I a proponent of this religion? And then I started thinking deeper about the place of religion in Singapore society. We are a secular nation, but we're also multi-religious and multicultural. Obviously, there have been controversies with religions trying to figure out how to coexist in this civil space, in civil society. So I was like, okay, maybe I can explore that, which again is a huge thing. So I set myself. So
it's like a mammoth of thing that you're tackling.
Yeah, but I decided, look, I hadn't written in a while. Let's just give it a go. And again, credit to Checkpoint because they just give us this carte blanche, like, look, come and play, come and explore.
Just sink your teeth into it.
Just sink your teeth. So I did that. I wrote like 8 or 10 pages, maybe even less. And I sent it off to Huzier, and Huzier is like, you know what? I like this. Keep going. I was like, okay, keep going. I was like, oh, wow.
You're done.
I thought this was just a technical exercise, right? So I had to keep going. And then again, Checkpoint has a developmental platform called Works in Development, where they showcase works in development, right? But I enjoy that platform a lot because it's where it's very low stakes, it's very fuss free. It's a dramatized reading of a script, but you get, as a player, you get invaluable feedback, which is what the audience is getting from it. As a player, you watch the audience. So I actually enjoy putting my plays on that platform. And then Huzier was like, okay, keep writing. Okay, let's put the play up for this Works in Development. And it was on Zoom in 2021.
Okay.
It was over Zoom in 2021, which got some good feedback. And then so I just kept writing. And it was a very painful process to write. Because it's, like I said, it's real time. It's basically a 90-minute scene.
Wow. Wow.
And no new characters come in. Yeah. So just two of them. So I had to really dig deep, and I had to find a way to, okay, if I'm going to have this narrative development later on, how do I seed it early on? So as I wrote consecutive drafts, I find that I had to go back and I realized, I want to do this on page 12. I had to go back to page 2.
Because it doesn't just happen. It
Correct.
has to have a
There's
root.
the upstream, yes. It has roots there. I have to seed it, and there's a downstream, upstream effect. So it was really stressful to write. But then I realized, actually that's who I am as a playwright. Actually, I write the plays that I don't think exist yet. So I wrote FRAGO because there was no play about reservists. There were plays about the 2 years NS experience. But nobody had written
films
and of course short stories, but never a play about reservists, right? Because it's different, right? When you go back for reservists. So I was like, okay, there's a gap here. Let me fill it. And then again, with A Heart Comes to Mind, like you very rarely get stories about fathers and daughters. It's usually about mothers and sons or mothers and daughters. That father-daughter axis was.
That's true.
And I also was drawing on my own experience as a young father to a young daughter. So I realized actually I'm like that lah.
You like to tackle things that have not been tackled before.
Yeah, or in a form that hasn't been tackled before. Because The Heart Comes to Mind was completely discontinuous. It was a very fragmented piece of work, right? But again, there are strands that connect. So for this time around, I was like, okay, let me try this out. Let me try this form. Let me try tackling a theme.
And having a message.
And having a quote-unquote message, right? Or having something to say, ostensibly. So I realized that actually, if I tackle something that, if I write a play that doesn't exist, then I had to teach myself how to write the play. Which is stressful but also very fun, So, yeah.
And I mean, you are also you're married.
Yeah.
I mean, you're still in your 30s, right? I mean, compared to
I'm 39.
I mean, technically that's still 30s.
Yeah.
and the characters in your play, they're in their 50s, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, obviously, you guys are not within the same age bracket.
Yeah.
But you're married with you're married as well. I mean, you have a beautiful wife.
Beautiful wife, two children.
Two,
yes.
two daughters.
Two
Who,
daughters.
I met in 2017 when I went over to your place to do the photo shoot. Remember? So I was wondering, in any way, did you draw from your personal marriage, or did you draw from your personal experiences or personal relationships when you were writing Tender Submission?
Yes and no, which sounds like a cop-out answer. But I think, I mean, yeah, I think having been, I'll be married for 10 years in December this year, which is, not an insignificant period of time. So I obviously drew from my own experience of like, this is how a married couple interact. But then in my play, the couple is in their 50s. So I haven't had that long.
You haven't clocked in.
I haven't clocked in yet. But, I think I've observed a lot of older couples as well. I think
Our parents?
our parents, grandparents, as a player, I think I'm always people watching, so yeah, watching how that interacts. And I guess also, on some level also I'm trying to imagine like, oh, am I going to be like that when I turn 50? So there's an element of speculativeness. But yeah, it's definitely not based on any person, but somebody will say, hey, this reminds me of that. That's an inevitable bugbear that I have to address. But yeah, it's really just observing myself, but also just a range of people in long-term relationships. How you take certain things for granted, how there are certain ways of interacting that have just calcified. You fall into that rhythm of like, But it doesn't mean that you don't love each other. It's just
the progression of time and life.
Yeah. So a lot of the play deals with that.
And have you had a conversation with your wife about Tender Submission, or did you ask for her input or her opinion about anything? Or was it? Or did you keep it? Did you keep the personal separate from the project?
I mean, I don't consciously separate or try to I don't keep it a point to like completely divest the personal or to integrate the personal, right? But I do send my wife drafts of my work, and then sometimes she'll read them, and sometimes she'll say certain things, and then sometimes it's good feedback, sometimes it's feedback that I don't need to hear at that point, and then I'll just. But yeah, she knows what the play is about, and she's alright with it, I think.
I mean, it's ultimately from your perspective anyways, right?
Yeah.
There's no right or wrong. It's a life.
It's a life, and I think what it is that my wife understands that this is definitely not autobiographical or based or founded in or based on any one individual. But she will obviously know that real life seeps in anyway. I mean, it's not about her, but she'll just be aware of that. But my wife has been very supportive. She's always tried to invite her family and friends to my plays, which I'm very shy about.
Really? Even
I try not to.
So many years later.
I mean, yeah, it's always awkward, I guess, even for established playwrights.
So exposing a part of yourself.
It's always exposing a part of yourself, and I've had this conversation with Faith, where it's like we've come to terms with the fact that writing a play and finishing a play is a tiny death, right? You always, because it takes so much out of you, I mean, I'm not a poet, I'm not a novelist, and I imagine that poets and novelists also feel very aggrieved. But is this paradox where it's like I'm not writing something, I feel so inadequate. I'm writing something and I feel inadequate. I finish something and I feel, I don't know why we do it, but I mean, in the moment, I guess we find some joy in crafting a really authentic human story, but it's painful. So yeah, I'm very proud of the fact that a lot of very talented people have come on board and use their talents to make my work happen. But there's always going to be some slight awkwardness with like, do I really want to put this out in the world? I'm trying to be better at it as a writer to own it, to like, yes.
I wrote this, I'm proud of it.
Yeah, like to
Right.
stand by it in some way. I think I'm learning a lot to not be so shy about it. Yeah, but it's a process.
It's a process. All right, okay. Interesting piece of information. This play stars veteran actors Neo Swee Lin, right, and Lim Kay Siu, who are a real life couple. So was
Yes.
it like a deliberate, like conscious decision to cast them because of their relationship status?
Yes, I think we definitely, because the play features a couple who've been married for 30 years. You know, not to say that there's not that there are talented actors who can obviously do that, but we wanted to leverage on that pre-existing relationship. I think there's a level of trust and there's a level of understanding between Kay-Siu and Swee Lin. So that I think plays into the performance.
Yeah. But so what do they bring to the table in terms of like bringing your text to life? I mean, as individual talented actors, but also as a couple.
So I think they. Yeah, so a lot, I've been in for some rehearsals and they said, yeah, we fought like that, we've talked like that, we've resolved conflicts also in this way. So they see a lot of that in their own marriage. I mean, they also appreciate the religious context. I mean, because they both had their own relationship with religion as well. So that,
With regards to marriage, in the context of...
in the context of their own marriage, but also they've had their own personal journeys with religion. And not my place to share here, but they've both individually journeyed with various religions. But yeah, I think what it is that every time, because they obviously come into work together, they come into the rehearsal room together, and it's very clear that they care for each other. And I think that level of trust and affection, where even if a married couple is fighting and even if they're going at it, they are at each other's throats, you still sense that they care for each other deeply. It's that
affection.
That affection is that tension, right? Where like I'm really angry at you right now, but I also care for you.
The baseline is that there's love there.
The baseline is there's love there, and that's something that I think they carry into the performance. Yeah.
Nice. And another interesting bit is that you're collaborating with two directors, right?
Yes.
Which I would imagine, for obvious reasons, different from working with one director.
Yeah.
So you're working with, obviously Huzair, the legend, who is a veteran actor, playwright, director, and co-founder of Checkpoint Theatre. But you're also working with Chen Yingxuan,
Yeah.
right? Who also has an amazing portfolio, because I was researching her yesterday.
Yes.
Described as one of the most exciting directors of her generation.
Yes.
So what is it like collaborating with two directors, and specifically these two directors?
Yeah. No, I think I can explain why it's two directors first. I think.
Okay. All right.
I think after Huzair was developing the play with me, right, as a dramaturg, he was developing the play with me. He felt very strongly that the play will benefit from a female perspective, right? Because it's a married couple.
Yeah.
Right? You've got the husband and wife. So he said it will benefit from a female perspective, and also somebody who has experience with the Christian faith, because he doesn't have that. So he literally picked somebody who is almost opposite to him, because he's married and he's in his 50s. Yingxuan is not married. She's in her 30s. Huzair's Muslim. Yingxuan's Christian. So it's the opposites. I think he consciously wanted that kind of divergence of life experience, of lived experience. But at the same time, as you pointed out, Yingxuan is an incredibly talented director. I mean, she directed many of Joel's early works, and she had to, she obviously had to step away from directing for a while, but now she's back. And when we heard she's back, Huzair was like, no, I want her to come aboard, And Yingxuan and I actually go way back also, because we knew each other from NUS.
Oh.
So I'm very, yeah.
She was also in the the same course as you were?
Yes, she took
The Pioneer batch?
No, she wasn't in Pioneer batch, but she did take Huzia's playwriting class, and she also, I think, assistant directed some of Huzia's plays. So, yeah, she's a really thoughtful artist. So I really value both of them in the rehearsal room. I mean, the truth is actually, they rarely diverge on opinion.
Oh,
I mean, if they
that's
do,
interesting. Okay.
if they do diverge, it's like yeah, actually there are multiple possibilities. Let's explore all. You know, it's not a either or thing.
It's a functional marriage.
It's a fictional, it is a fictional marriage, but and they just take turns to give direction. You know, there's just this understanding in the room. So yeah, it's a really strong partnership.
I mean, that's good to know.
Yeah.
As in, like, there's no strong conflict of interest.
No.
But I'm also interested to know about your role in the staging of the play, right? Because
Yeah.
I would imagine when you are writing tender submission or writing any play, you're in the privacy of your own headspace.
Yes.
And that play feels personal and intimately yours.
Yeah.
But once it's done, it's no longer yours. You're sort of handing it over to the director to bring it to life, and it's presented to the audience.
Yeah.
Like, is it difficult for you to relinquish your work, or are you just grateful to get it out of your hair?
I think it's something that as a playwright, I've learned that you have to relinquish. And in fact, it's if you are working with collaborators that you trust, it's a joy to hand it over to them because you know that they'll make it even better. They'll find things that you never even thought were there, right? But also I think Checkpoint's approach is always to have the playwright in the room. They always enjoy having a living playwright in the room, which is why they always do original Singapore stories, because it's not just some static text, right? They always invite the playwright in to shed light on basically what I call, like the subterranean aspects of the play. Because, as you said, the play lives in our head for so long. We've created like extensive backstories and life journeys for all our characters.
Which might not even make it into the final.
Which doesn't even need to be on the page, right? But
Yeah.
we've obviously done that. We've lived through that to make sure that the characters are authentic. So they invite us in and get us to share as much as possible, right? On the reality of what is it like to be part of this organization? What is it like to have had this life experience? Because we've done the research. And but our what we say is not, sacrosanct. They also question us like, is this plausible? Is this true? Would it be more interesting if we shift it like that? So it's a wonderful process where it gets opened up, right? And again, as a playwright, it can be quite confronting. It's like, oh my
Right.
gosh, I didn't think this through properly. But then you realize, no, it's a good thing, because after having gone through multiple like edits or multiple comments, then it becomes richer. It becomes more real. Right, so I've learned to enjoy the process a lot. Like, yeah, it is destabilizing. It's like, oh, did I really think this through? And in some cases, yeah, you didn't. And so let's.
Or maybe you
solve it.
did, but just like an opposing view.
Yes.
You're confronted with an opposing view.
And that's exactly why I enjoy being a playwright, because it's that frisson of collaboration that makes it better, and to be open to other people's opinions and other life experiences. So I enjoy the process. So yeah, for tender submission, for instance, I was in a lot during the first week, just to kind of share them, okay, this is my own experience being religious in Singapore, growing up in a specific kind of church in Singapore. Doesn't mean that they have to take it wholesale into the play, but it's just because it informed a lot of the writing. So they wanted to hear from me about that. But Huzia and Ying Xuan also, they don't want to change the script unnecessarily.
Yeah.
But then there were typos. There were things that, okay, can we tweak this so that it lands better? So it's a conversation. And then I agree, some things I agree, some no, let's keep it this way.
But what happens when there is a disagreement? Was there something that you felt very passionately about, and you insist that it stuck to what you originally crafted? Without giving away too much.
No, actually. Funnily enough, no. I think, firstly, because I think Checkpoint and Huzia as dramaturg developed the play so much already that any of those kinks were ironed out during my writing process. Right? I mean, I would point out some things like, oh, I'm not sure this would be there in the set. But then Huzia and Chen would convince me, no, just because you haven't seen it, in my experience, doesn't mean it's not plausible. I'm like, okay, fair enough. So, yeah, there's actually been
That's great.
no major...
There's no friction.
There's no
I mean, there's
friction.
the productive friction, but nothing that is too,
Yeah, sorry, I can't give you any tea. Because
No,
there's no, but
that could have been the teaser for this
would have been
podcast, Lucas.
No, but I'm incredibly grateful that it's been quite harmonious. Yeah, so I really treasure that.
You were mentioning earlier that compared to your first two plays, right, where you were just depicting life for what life is or what life was, but with Tender Submission, you wanted to have a message.
Yeah.
So, as an audience member, what do you want them to take away after watching the play?
I think that the with regards to the theme of the play, I think one thing that maybe we can consider is, what is the place of religious practice in Singapore? What shape and what form should it take? I think there's probably room for us to imagine more possibility. And I think Singapore has done a good job in keeping our helping all the religions coexist. But then also, I mean, I shared this in the Straits Times interview, right? Like, I think there's also a conservative base that feel that, we are a conservative society, let's push back against what they see as the
Liberal.
the liberalization or the apparent depletion of moral values in Singapore. Right? I don't want to say too much about it again. Right? I just want to keep it broad. But again, the Aware saga in 2003. That's a well-known, well-documented event where a right-wing Christian group tried to infiltrate a secular space. And then more recently, also I think about the Watain controversy, where it was a conservative base that, IMDA had approved it, and a conservative base without actually understanding what death metal music is. So I'm just trying to question, is this the way we want society to be, where there's this constant back and forth, or can we find a way to really give space to each other? So that's something that I'm just leaving as a very broad question. But also on a personal level, I think it's a question of how do we give space for each other, even in an interpersonal relationship? Because we as individuals will grow and change and shift. In a marriage and a long-term relationship, even between family members, right? Parents, siblings, cousins, we might not agree on certain things down the road. How do we negotiate that? When we sense that each other's worldviews are diverging, how do we talk about it in a meaningful way instead of just shutting it down? So that, I think, it's not a message, but I think it's a clear line of questioning that I do want to engage with an audience.
Something interesting that just crossed my mind was that I guess different generations of Singaporeans would watch or play and perceive it differently.
Yeah.
I would assume that our parents' generation, they will watch it and look at it differently. And people of our generation or people who come after us, they might watch it differently. Was that something that you took into consideration? And actually, who were you intending to write this for?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I'm definitely cognizant that the audience is diverse, right? They will be, they come from all walks of life, and they would, they would call themselves by different names or different labels. I've honestly, I've not consciously thought how is this going to land for an older audience or a non-religious audience. I think for me, it is the human drama. So again, I go back to that. It's just a long-term relationship, a couple who have been married for very long. How are they negotiating this inflection point where they realize, we've changed? How do we negotiate that? I think that is something that regardless of age or gender or religious background. That's something that we all kind of, okay, this is a human story. You know, so yeah, I've not thought about it.
I mean, you don't have to have an answer for it.
Yeah.
I just thought it would be an interesting thinking point.
No, now I'm going to think about it. But to answer your question also, I think ultimately, at the risk of sounding like selfish and pretentious, I do write for myself, right? Because
That's not selfish.
well, I mean, yeah, if this is a story that I'm not interested in, why do I expect other people to be interested in it? You know, why am I foisting something that I don't even think is worth it on a paying public? So yeah, if anything, I have to be convinced of the worth of the narrative of the story. So yeah.
And this is also something that I've been thinking about a lot, and this is looking at the arts and local theatre from a more macro perspective. I was thinking about how the idea of Asian values have changed over the years in Singapore, and I was wondering what you think about the role that theatre or the arts play in like reshaping those values. Because I'm thinking that your play is a prime example of a product that is trying to reflect the change of values, right? That we subscribe to, that we believe in, that we challenge. Do you think theatre and the arts played a major role or like a significant role in like remolding the way Singaporeans think or people in Singapore think?
I think it has. I think you know, again, we were just talking about this before I started. I think playwrights like Haresh Sharma, you know, Faith Ng, I think, and even Joel Tan, I think those three playwrights off the top of my head have in the last 15 years really shifted our idea of what theatre could be. You know, I think we've come, I think, you know, we're only 50, we're 59, right? As a country, we're in our 59th year. We've come a long way. You know, I think previously, you know, again, previously in like the 60s and 70s, it was just mostly Shakespeare. Amateur drama clubs doing Shakespeare, and then we had the early dramatists, right? Robert Yeoh, Gopo Singh, who tried to capture what it was like as a young nation and tried to engage with how we speak, our vernacular. And it's something that Haresh, Faith, Joel, and many other playwrights of my generation, we've continued to push and we continue to explore. We continue to, I mean, even before we talk about values, we own the way we speak. We put people on stage that look and sound and have the life experiences that we've had. And I think that is one very fundamental way that has shaped our values, because we realize our stories matter. We're recognizing that instead of just a top-down approach to like, this is how we should live, we're realizing on the ground people are finding ways to express themselves, people are finding ways to make a life, and these are worthwhile stories, right? People are making an effort to carve out a space for themselves, right? So Harish has done this, Faith has done this, Joel has done this. And also we're trying to shift the needle, right? On again, how there can be multiple narratives, right? So, and again, because when you say Asian values, that harkens back to, again, a very top-down approach, a very paternalistic approach. And when we celebrate a multiplicity of narratives, we're beginning to say that, look, actually, let's listen, let's put our ear to the ground, let's listen to what's going on, and also, therefore, try to have a consensus about how life should be in this community of ours. So I think that's how theatre has shifted our values. You know, we're beginning to be, I think we're beginning to see a need to be more tolerant. Not just tolerant, right? We move from tolerance to inclusivity.
Yeah.
And I definitely think theatre has been a big part of that. I think, you know, I mean, I say this again because I'm part of Checkpoint Theatre, but Normal by Faith Ng has been such a huge, it's been a cultural touchstone, because even before, they've obviously done away with streaming, now it's all about subscription, but before even we got to that conversation, in 2015, it was already evoking that, and it did it by just putting on stage the very honest and authentic experiences of what it was like to be a normal student, normal academic student. So yeah, I think theatre is definitely has some soft power in Singapore.
Soft power.
Yeah.
Congrats, because you're an agent of change.
Well, we all are agents of change, so we just need to have, we just need to know that our stories matter, I think, and not be ashamed to do that. I think, especially in the age of social media, where, again, we're trying to work through like call-out culture, right, and all that.
Cancel culture.
And I think, in a sense, theatre is an antidote to that, because it's not just a 2-minute snippet of something. We have to tell a sustained narrative. And even if, I was just having this conversation with somebody else, and like, even if you put a character on stage that is bigoted and racist, at least you make sure that it's a 3-dimensional racist.
Yeah. There must be a reason why this person was racist to begin.
Like, I'm not gonna redeem him, but at least we understand why they got there. I think theatre can do that. And because we put an actor on a stage, right? It's not just something on the page, or it's not a 2-dimensional image. It's a live actor using his body and using their voice and their body to tell a story of this unlikable character, or this character that we have never heard of, whose story has not had the chance to be told. It does land very differently. It's a very powerful medium, So and I think we also resist against that, the rush to judgment that we see on social media today.
Yeah.
We also push back against that.
I've never thought about theatre playing that kind of role. That's a very interesting perspective.
Yeah.
Because especially now, when everyone is so quick to just cancel anybody or everybody for literally anything.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, look, guys, I just wanted to change direction a bit.
Yes.
And I wanted to congratulate you on your scholarship.
Oh, wow.
So tell me more about, let's see, what scholarship did you win again?
So I just got awarded the NAC Postgraduate Scholarship. I'm going to be pursuing a MFA, a Masters of Fine Arts, at Royal Central School of Speech and Drama in London. The title of my degree is a bit long. It's a MFA in Writing for the Stage and Broadcast Media. So I'm very excited to go back to school. But you've caught me at a very interesting time, because I'm actually going to be flying off in a month. So I'm in this
soon.
Yeah, it's so soon. I'm in this crazy swirl of trying to pack up my life and move over there and trying to start over again.
So I literally had this golden opportunity to like hold on to you just for this 1 hour
before
you fly into.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I'm trying to pack up my life. I've got a play premiering, so it's a bit crazy. But no, this is a treat. So thank you Thank you for having me.
But why was it important for you to have this opportunity to further your education, like especially at this stage of your career? Were you feeling stunted? Were you feeling stuck?
I mean, so I shared with you a bit of the impetus for writing Tender Submission. Was like, let me just re-examine my craft. But also, I had been teaching. I was very blessed to have been able to teach creative writing at SOTA, School of the Arts. Right? So I was teaching at School of the Arts from 2019 to 2022. Right? I started as an adjunct and then I joined full-time. Very serendipitously, because I joined full-time just as COVID broke. So I'm very grateful for that. But also I'm very grateful for my time at SOTA, because there's nowhere else in Singapore where you can teach creative writing. I was teaching playwriting, but also I had to teach poetry and short story writing. But yeah, there's nowhere else in Singapore where I can teach creative writing at such a sustained pace. It's a program for 13 to 18-year-olds. I have 7 hours a week to do creative writing.
That's intense.
It's intense, but it's also a privilege.
It's a privilege, yes.
Right.
And it's great for 13 to 18-year-olds.
It's wonderful. So SOTA is really doing something great there. I mean, they obviously have other art forms, theatre, visual arts, music, but they have a creative writing program. It's called Literary Arts. It's a program called Literary Arts there. So I was teaching literary arts, and I got the chance to, as a teacher of literary arts, as a teacher of creative writing, I got the chance to reflect on my own craft as well, right? And you know, as a teacher of literary arts, obviously I'm going into classrooms and I'm giving them creative exercises. Because my mindset was, I don't want to be lecturing, I don't want to be telling you what to write, I just want you to create. Just make as much as you can, because, you know, make as much as you can without fear. You know, and I want to be creating a lot of things and sharing that work in the students so that they begin to trust their own voice and they begin to also hear other voices, and that's how you grow.
The same approach that Jose Redclair
Exactly.
had with you.
Exactly. So as I was going through this, obviously, as you know, as a teacher of creative writing, I also was reflecting on my own craft as a writer, and I was beginning to grow as an artist educator. And then I realized, you know, I've been coming up with all these exercises, and I've been writing this curriculum for creative writing. You know, I felt like, you know, after two and a half years, I had like sort of, I was like, if I want to learn more, if I want to be better at this, because I sensed that it was also raising my game as a writer. If I want to get better at this, actually, you know, I maybe want to go back to school, you know, and, you know, because if, it's almost like dog fooding, where like if I want to learn, if I want to figure out what's best for the student, I have to go back and be a student myself again. You know, then I understand, okay, this is how I can optimize a classroom. This is how I can create the best classroom environment for creative writers. So that seeded in my head, maybe I can do my master's, because for the longest time I had put it off. For the longest time I was like, no, I'm very blessed to have Checkpoint and have a practice. This is my master's. I don't need to go to school for that.
Yeah.
You know,
I can understand that mentality.
Yeah. But then, after having taught at School of the Arts in the literary arts program, I was like, actually, maybe there is a point and purpose to do it. And also, I felt that, you know, I'm 39 this year. Wow. I'm also wondering, why am I going back to school at 39? I realized,
Why not, bro?
No, why not, right? Because at this stage, when you have that experience, you can go back to school and make the best of it. Because you know, sometimes you get pushed. And, okay, I have to do my masters. You know, sometimes it's just a piece of paper.
Precisely.
Go and get out. But you know, I guess I'm at the point now where I really can make the best of it. Because
It's not like a requirement. It's a privilege and a blessing.
Correct, and because I've been a teacher myself, so I'm going in as a sort of, as a student with a plan, a student with a plan. So, that was my journey into thinking about, do I want to do my master's?
And how long will the master's be?
It's a 2-year program.
2-year program. And you'll be relocating to London.
I'll be relocating with my family to London for 2 years.
Okay. And in the best case scenario, what are your hopes and dreams? You know, what will be a result of you, getting your master's?
Well, I think, like I said, I hope I become a better teacher, a better artist educator, a better instructor of creative writing. I think that's the first thing. But also, again, I hope I use that time to just make new work, make more work, and just also, being transplanted in a new context, see what it does for my own creative writing. Because I strongly believe this is where Singapore is where my stories belong. This is always home for me. But who knows? Being in a new place, in a new city, it might unlock something. Being at a distance from Singapore, being at a remove, does it shift my perspective on what I think about this place and the work that I make about Singapore? Will I start writing plays that are set in London? I don't know. So I'm open to all that.
I'm excited to see your growth and your evolution and what possibly is triggered because you're there.
Well, thank you. Yeah. I hope so too.
So it's been, a good 6 years since your debut play was staged, but you started in theatre since 2007,
yeah, let's just...
right? And in all those years, right, after all this time has passed, what have you learned about yourself? Personally or as a theatre maker, or both?
I think I've learned that you can't divorce the work of being a better human being from the work of theatre making. Because if you're not interested in how to be a better person, right? If you're not being open to letting people tell you that you're wrong, if you're not open to how other cultures and how other people are thinking and trying to do better, then you're not going to be a good theatre maker, because theatre making is about being empathetic. It's about being open to different experiences and how to put those different experiences on stage in an authentic way. So yeah, it's always it's constantly being curious, not just about, I mean, obviously being curious about the world, but also being very open to how a lot of ways of thinking and a lot of what you held true, all of that could be wrong in the future. You know, I mean, one thing also that I'm very cognizant of is, for instance, I always say that, oh, you know, our parents' generation and the older generation told us to do things a certain way, and now obviously we learned that was not the best way to do things, and we're trying to do things our own certain way. I mean, we'll get to the point where we become the older generation, and the younger generation will say, look, you guys did things the wrong way. We're doing it better now because, you know, it was not good enough.
What a scary thought.
Right? No, so yeah, it's only recently, I guess, because as a theatre, but also as a parent, I began to realize that we'll become in that position, and we will, ironically, we will be
what we complain about.
Exactly. So why not start the work now of being open to it? And you know, I don't want to be that irritating old person, you know, where you're like finger waving, and then when people start to, when, you know, at the age of 50, you realize, we didn't do things like that. I mean, let's not be angry. You know, so yeah, I think, obviously I'm not saying don't be angry. I mean, if there's something that enrages us, we should rightly be outraged, but we shouldn't rush to be angry, I think. Because if you rush to be angry, then as a storyteller, as a creative person, as a theatre maker, the work you're going to make shouldn't just be born out of anger. You know, there should be other elements in there as well. Yeah.
That is such a woke way of thinking.
I mean, we try to be woke.
And yeah, and I think we can end it on that woke note, Mr. Lucas Wu. Thank you so much for the conversation.
No, thank you, Arman. I really enjoyed this.
I'm excited to watch your play on the 17th, right? That's
17th.
The opening night?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank
you
you
so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lucas.
Thank you, Arman.
Great. We good?
Are you okay?
This guy
thanks,
just...
man.
Are you...
I don't know how
you're
long
good
we
on
talk.
time? That was an hour.
Okay, good.
Just
good.
nice, an hour.
I do need to bounce soon, but it's not. I'm not rushing for time.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, man. Thank you. Wow.
That was a great conversation.
I hope you.
I knew that was exactly what
Really,
that was what I can expect from Mr.